And hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Frazier and Deeter's Business Beat. I'm John Ray, alongside Frazier and Deeter managing partner of the Alpharetta office, Roger Lusby. Roger.
Hey, John. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Your team, you're all smiles today.
Well, we
because
got
your
through,
team had a big victory.
We got through the September 15th deadline, so that was great. And I had to travel up to Pittsburgh, which was a pretty neat dinner. And then Sunday we went to the Washington, I still say Redskins, but Commanders and the Denver Bronco game in Denver. So that was very exciting, very fun, and we barely came out with a win. So
all the Denver fans just quit listening. They're bitter, right?
They're all college fans now. Go
right.
Buffs!
Yeah, that's right. That's right. They're on with Dion right now. But and also want to welcome Courtney Mishoe.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, delighted to have both of you here, and I know you're excited about the tax season winding down here, right?
Always.
Yep, for sure. But we've got two great guests here from the law firm of Wicker Smith. We got Joe Menello and Jon Silverman. Joe, John, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Great to have both of you here. How about a little introduction to Wicker Smith and how you're serving folks out there?
Sure. Thanks for having us this morning. I know John was on about a year and a half ago, so happy to introduce our firm. Mm-hmm. The full name is Wicker Smith, O'Hara, McCoy, and Ford. We go by Wicker Smith, sort of our trade name. We are a civil litigation firm doing defense work. We have actually 16 offices, 12 in Florida, 2 in Georgia, 1 in Nashville, and 1 in Phoenix. We do defense work. A lot of medical malpractice defense. That was sort of our bread and butter for many years. That's what we based our practice on. But we represent businesses, individuals involved in any type of commercial litigation, personal injury litigation, construction defect, professional liability, that type of stuff. So we've been around for now 71 years.
Oh, wow.
Happy to continue to grow. We were fortunate. John and I were fortunate enough about 2.5 years ago to work together to open our Atlanta office, and we're happy to be a part of this community and look to see further growth.
Yeah, and that's been a great move for you, and you guys were primarily a Florida firm, and so 2 years now in Atlanta, and I think that your growth has been exceeded expectations, right?
It has. Yeah, we've been. I tell people I'm very lucky, and a lot of it has to do with the people who are with us. John and our assistant Kelly, who started. It was 3 of us together. We were in a temporary space, but we did not expect the growth that we have. We now have 8 lawyers. We have 3 graduates who are waiting on their results. Bar results in Georgia come out next month, so everyone cross your fingers on our 3 law clerks. So hopefully by the middle of October, we'll have 11 lawyers, which is,
wow.
Yes, a much faster growth than I think as a firm we anticipated. But I think we knew we had that potential because we have a lot of good clients that were willing to send us work, which is great. A lot of faith in what we do. And I think we've sort of worked hard and shown that we have that ability to take on more. So
it reminds me of the old days when Frazier and Deeter was starting out, John, and it was just the 4 of us. And,
that's right.
Very, very small, cramped office space, and because expenses were important back then. But Atlanta was a great city for us, and we had the energy, and we worked hard, and it was a great thing.
Yeah, no, it's been a great city. It's a wonderful city. There's a lot of opportunity. A lot of businesses are here, obviously, a variety of businesses, diversity that you don't see in a lot of other cities. So, this was a great opportunity. We had talked about doing this for many years as a firm, and we thought the time was right, and it has proven to be.
Yeah, because with some of your national clients, you used to have to refer the work out to another firm. Yeah. And, now, of course, if you're here and you have a presence in Georgia, then you don't.
Yes. No, and that was one of the drivers is we had a lot of clients would always ask, well, do you have an office in Georgia? You have an office in Atlanta? And we wanted to stop being asked that question so we can actually say, yes, we do. And that, the national clients have really helped us.
But that means that guys like you and John then have to pass the Georgia bar, which of course both of you did.
Yeah, well, John went first, so but yeah, and it was
so that was your backup plan.
Yeah, well, I agreed to move up here, not realizing that was something I needed to do. I should have done my research beforehand, right? Good lawyer should have done that first, but realizing that, and then of course it was during the pandemic, so it was all remote, and so you've got to. I had not only had to relearn to take the bar, but I took it on a laptop in my daughter's room on a folding table. So yeah, that was quite interesting. So
yeah, and for a senior partner, that's a lot of pressure there. I mean, Courtney, imagine if we had to take the CPA exam over just because we moved or changed states. It would be ugly.
No, I've heard CPA stands for can't pass again. So yes. I don't want to do that.
Well, when I took the bar exam now, long time ago, 1998, in Florida, it was in Tampa. And I was married at the time. I remember driving back from Tampa back to Orlando, and I told my wife, I will never, ever do that again. I'm never taking another bar exam. So, and this is where we are now, right?
Yeah, never say never,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
Yeah. Well, now, Joe, you've got speaking of starting out in law, you've got an interesting story about that.
Yeah, I as many people within our firm and other folks who know me know, I actually started with Wicker Smith in 1989 as a summer runner copy guy. I was after my junior year in high school. My dad, who was a claims manager for Hartford Insurance, Wicker Smith was his law firm, and he asked our managing partner, Dick Ford, if he wouldn't mind having his middle son, who was interested in going into the practice of law, just give him a job over the summer. And so I ended up working in that office, and that office had only been open for a couple of years. And that was a small office as well. I had 3 lawyers, and I was the copy guy, runner. Anything they wanted me to do, I did. And so 1989, I was in a summer runner. I did that for a couple of other summers while in high school, and after a summer in school. And then after my second year in law school, I approached Mr. Ford again and said, "Hey, would you mind if I work as a law clerk?" And he hired me again, and it's been a good 26 years since then. So for sure,
that's terrific.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the various areas of defense work that you do. John, maybe you can come in on this one. Just talk about where some of your primary concentrations are. Some of that was mentioned, but maybe you could reiterate that.
Sure, absolutely. And again, thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me again. So primarily up here, so far, we've been handling a lot of construction defect defense, premises liability defense, general negligence, professional negligence, transportation, a lot of transportation defense, and we handle cases sometimes from days from an incident happening. Sometimes we get a case where a lawsuit has already been filed. So sometimes we're there at the inception. Sometimes we parachute in at the in the 11th hour and assist our clients and setting the case up to go to trial in weeks or months, sometimes shorter, and that's primarily what we do. A lot of motion practice, a lot of negotiations, a lot of investigation. Finding witnesses, locating former employees, making sure that we meet with any potential witness who has anything to do with some surrounding incident. We just there's no end to the type of investigation that we do to adequately defend these cases. So that's our bread and butter. We're in the courtroom a lot. We're arguing motions a lot, taking depositions, going through expert discovery, and going to trial. We have a big trial firm where we have a reputation for being one of the biggest trial firms in the state of Florida, and hoping to expand that into Georgia.
Got it.
But the trials are still backed up. I mean, with COVID and everything else, the calendars, as I understand it, are still backed up. And Joe, talk about some of the ways that COVID impacted your profession and the ways that you have to deal with things differently now.
Oh yeah, no, it's there is still some backup. I think what you're seeing for us in civil litigation, part of the backup is a lot of the criminal cases are still backed up. There's so many of those, and those get priority. The courts have all around have done a fantastic job of working their way through to try to get these cases moved, either resolved or tried, whatever. Where in the past, if we wanted a continuance of a trial, it was typically given. Now you have to have a good reason because these courts want to process through them. But I think the courts are catching up. But obviously, the long-lasting effect of COVID and the pandemic it continues with remote attendance at mediations and hearings. We continue to do that, and I think there's a lot of benefit. There's some negative to it, but it's here to stay because I think the courts have figured out there's a lot of things that can get done without having 30 lawyers show up at the courthouse waiting on a hearing, and because you can have hearings that aren't necessarily that difficult or complicated with a lot of evidence. And we can even conduct mediations that are simpler. You can do those remotely. Where in the past, we would want to make sure we're showing things to people in person. Everybody's used to watching TV now. So if you show it on a screen, it's just like being there.
Yeah.
Or I should say looking at their phones too, not necessarily TV anymore, but look at things electronically. But yeah, it has changed how we practice law. We've had to become savvy in sharing our screen on Zoom, making sure we're not on mute, which some lawyers still have not learned to do. But it has certainly changed, made things a lot of ways more efficient. But it allows us to get things done more quickly. But yeah, it's definitely here to stay.
Yeah, we were talking about the people automatically default to efficiency arguments about this, right? But there's some inefficiencies to it too, just like anything. There's pros and cons.
Yeah,
and talk about the cons.
Well, and I think one of the cons is you never get a break. This is even, they say, issues with people work from home. Used to be you would go home because now you have a separation between work and office. But if you're attending things by remotely, then you just click off and then you go to the next thing, as opposed to if I was going to a hearing at a courthouse an hour away, I would just be able to sit in that car, sort of mentally prepare a little bit, maybe listen to sports radio, sort of get my mind straight. And then when I was done, have another little break. But you don't get those natural breaks anymore. Even traveling for experts. It would be great to go travel to great cities throughout the country for an expert deposition. You can't do that anymore because, most of the time you're remote. You're doing it from your office. Talking about going to games, I would schedule football or baseball games around a deposition if I could, But those things you can't do, and yes, you don't get that break that you used to get. So, and I think it's causing, you just feel like you're constantly going.
Yeah, and particularly when you're trying to recruit additional talent, right, to help alleviate that load. And speaking of that, let's talk about that. I mean, how you've been able to grow. You're obviously doing something right, because there are a whole lot of firms out there that are peer firms of yours that are begging for talent, and you seem to be able to attract it. So talk about, maybe you can reveal your secrets here.
I don't know what great secret I have. We have gotten lucky to find some really good lawyers who have agreed to work with us. I think part of the appeal of us, I think, are the lawyers who have come with us like the idea of a new office with a big firm, right? You get a lot of the benefits of a large firm, but the office is just starting. And when I interview lawyers, I talk about the challenge of that and really the opportunity. You get young lawyers who go into a big office with 50 to 100 lawyers. They don't know when they're going to get those opportunities. But with us, with our size and with the work that we have, giving young lawyers that opportunity to be lawyers early on, take depositions, argue motions, attend mediations, doing more substantive work. I think that was at least part of the draw for our lawyers. But it's still a challenge. It's still a challenge with the market and finding staff, paralegals, assistants. Because those folks are also an important part of our growth, and finding those types of folks is still continues to be a challenge.
But you still have your clients that'll say, Joe, I want you in that trial room. And and so you've got to either do that here in Georgia or Florida or wherever that might be.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And I count myself lucky that I have had great clients who have had trust in me. I've been asked, as John has known, I continue to go down to Florida to try cases for a particular client. I take it as a big compliment. My wife sometimes doesn't enjoy that, but continuing to do that. I enjoy trials, so I'm happy to do it. And sometimes I tell folks it's kind of like a vacation. I'm in my zone and not dealing with everything else. But so I've continued to do that. We're looking to try more cases up here, and try cases in Georgia and actually throughout the state. And I think that more of that's going to come.
So what do we do about trying to get rid of or eliminate what I call a lot of the nuisance lawsuits? And you guys see so many of those defending your clients.
John?
Sure. Well, again, it's kind of our job to to evaluate the case, to investigate the case, and be frank with our clients, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And in the event, and we do see it sometimes, we review a lawsuit or a claim and we investigate it, and it, it appears to be nuisance based. We just provide that analysis to our clients. We let them know, basically best case scenario, worst case scenario, and provide our recommendations. And sometimes the recommendation is to fight the claim, fight the lawsuit tooth and nail, retain experts, liability, causation, damages experts. And we're fortunate enough to have a number of clients who really are willing to put the money behind those defense costs for a positive outcome. And because of that, we are able to get out on summary judgment, which is in effect a dismissal of the case, an outright dismissal of the case. Or sometimes we proceed to trial and obtain defense verdicts. So there are mechanisms, and we're fortunate enough to have a number of clients who are willing to take principled stances to really get to the bottom of some of these claims and defend them vigorously. And that's what we work on.
And I think nuisance lawsuits have always been around,
of course,
and obviously with the onset of lawyer advertising, we see more of it. And I don't think we're ever going to be able to stop it. I think what our approach is, we're going to aggressively defend cases. And we're going to show that it's not easy. It's not going to be easy to even get that nuisance value out of a case. And I think that's what we have instilled in our lawyers in our office and throughout our firm, is that we aggressively going to defend every case, regardless of potential value, because you never know what a jury's 2 years down the road is going to think of a case. So we want to be aggressive on that case, move cases along, and defend it to the best we can. And I think ultimately, with each individual case, if you show you're aggressively defending it, then oftentimes the lawyer on the other side, if they realize that the amount they were thinking they were going to get is not there, then they may decide ultimately it's not worth to pursue.
Yeah, and how do you walk clients through this decision, right? Because some clients are apt to, they just want to get it off their plate and settle for some amount, and then others really need to take a principled stand. It's not about it's about the money, but it's also about what other intangibles, right, that come out of defending themselves, their reputation, what have you. How do you walk a client through that decision matrix? Because everybody's different, I know.
Well, and we have to balance, because we have two roles. We're the litigator, right? We're there to fight,
Yeah.
right? But we're also the counselor.
Sure.
We have to counsel the clients on the pros and the cons of defending a case. Costs are involved. The fees that would have to be spent. We don't want a client to have to pay us $100,000 in a case that we could settle for $2,000, right? That's not how we do it. So we've got to be honest with them and from the beginning. And that's what I think clients appreciate about us is as early as possible, we try to give them an honest evaluation of a case, what we think it's potentially worth, what's the downside, what's the good side. Not telling them sometimes you don't want to tell them all the good just because you want to go try that case, right? You want to tell them both. And for us, with a lot of our clients, the bigger corporate clients, their concern is brand protection. And they want to make sure we're protecting their brand. And that's what we have to go into. Do they want to go try that case? Is it worth it to defend it? But ultimately we try to give the client as much information as a candid evaluation as possible and let them make the decision. If they decide they want us to go fight it, we're going to go fight it.
Yeah, and a number of your clients have got in-house legal counsel as well, so they already speak your language and are pretty familiar with the process.
Yes, yeah, and that's why we're lucky in that regard.
Yeah, and there's some cases that are losers, and you just have to try to mitigate those risks as much as possible.
Yeah, and that's true, and that's what a lot of this is, right? It's risk mitigation. Because going to try case is a huge risk. You never know what those jurors are going to do, no matter how confident you think they're going to go. But yeah, that's our role, and I think that's what clients expect. I think we serve them well in that regard. So.
Is there an industry or or type of suits that you're seeing more growth in right now, or is that still across the board? Well,
I think the numbers are going up in general, but this won't be of any surprise to anyone in the Atlanta area. A lot of auto cases. I mean, they're just all over the place. And more construction on the roads, the more likelihood there's going to be an accident. And so you just keep seeing those numbers grow and grow and grow. Those have always been the biggest number of cases, but they just continue to grow. Trucking cases, those have grown, so yeah, you kind of see those cases continue to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah, because we just had a horrific one this past week. So
yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's the nature of sort of what we do. So.
Folks, we're chatting with Joe Menello and Jon Silverman. They are attorneys with Wicker Smith. John, you mentioned construction defect cases. Talk about what some of the trends you're seeing there, if any, that you think are noteworthy.
Sure. Well, again, with construction defect, one of the biggest defects that has been, present across the board now and in years past is, sometimes water intrusion. There's always issues with water intrusion. Whether it's an initial construction, whether it's a repair and remediation that was not up to code or was not performed how a similarly situated contractor would perform it. So those are the types of construction defect claims that we see sometimes in the context of homeowners associations where the same issue is pervasive throughout a number of buildings. And those types of cases are very expert dependent. Sometimes we have to retain very specific types of engineers or, experts with expertise in some specific contracting trade. So, those are the types that we are seeing. Not so much high rises, but more residential claims.
And what is the? I guess is this a particular expertise of yours that you brought to the firm, or is this something that is just a feature like auto claims and auto related litigations, a feature of the landscape in Atlanta?
Sure. Well, I definitely have a lot of experience with construction defect prior to working, at the Atlanta office of Wicker Smith with Joe. I worked in Wicker Smith's Naples office, and Naples, Florida is known for high rises, and the Fort Myers area is known for high rises, and a lot of that construction was, a lot of those areas were developed in the late 2000s. So, a few years back when I was at the Naples Wicker Smith office, that's when a lot of those construction defect claims really came to light. So I had a number of cases down there where, we were representing a general contractor or a subcontractor, and there were 30 other parties involved. There were 25, 28, 30 subcontractors involved. So we would have these lawsuits where we have 30 lawyers, and each lawyer, each client has 1 to 2 experts, sometimes more. So if you think about just the number of depositions and site inspections, it's hard to even sit down and think about how much experience I've had with all of these contractors and how many depositions I sat through and how many expert depositions. Some of these expert depositions in complex construction defect cases go 6-7 days, and they're not always consecutive. We might have a day of deposition and say, okay, well, let's continue this deposition. When are all 30 of you available next? Right. and sometimes it's the next month. So a lot of the courts down in Florida for these bigger construction defect type cases would say, okay, counsel, the court needs you to block all of your schedules off the third week of every single month. Doesn't matter if a holiday falls, keep your schedules clear. And those dates were reserved for whatever tasks we needed to do in those cases. And so definitely a lot of experience, a lot of expert exposure, a lot of exposure to defect claims that, an ordinary person don't even think about. But there's a small code violation that turns into just a huge issue, pervasive damage throughout an entire condo.
Wow. Roger, that makes my eyes roll back in my head. I mean,
well,
hear how complex that is.
Some of our blessings. I mean, we work really hard and we have our due dates, but at least they're set.
Yeah,
I always feel for the lawyers where they got the courts basically handling their calendars.
Oh boy!
I learned a long time ago that we have no control over where we're going to be and when.
Right.
But you manage it. I've been lucky enough with my support system. My wife has been phenomenal as you know, sacrificing coming to Atlanta, even that. But over the years, just in what we do, and I know Christina's the same way, is we can be called to trial at any moment. And we could think we're going to trial on a Monday and we could be working all weekend, and then first thing Monday morning, case settles. But that sacrifice, I think, is something we deal with, but it's something individually John and I can deal with, but it's having that great support system, that the understanding family and the spouses that definitely allow us to do that. But you're right. It's we don't have much control. But I also tell a lot of young lawyers is you also have a lot of freedom, right? If you don't have appointments or things, that allows you to do other things that other people who are working 9 to 5 every day may not have.
Whereas, Courtney, we know we'll be working that weekend, right?
Right.
Always.
That's right. That's right. Well, that's interesting that you bring this up, because that really takes a lot of mental discipline to be able to stay in the game, I guess, as it were, right? I mean, with such uncertainty around when you're going to get called off the bench, to use a sports analogy.
Yeah. No, it is. I think the approach you have to take is you have to assume it's going to go. Regardless of how far in advance it's going to be, whatever trial it is, you have to assume you're going to go get to a trial or whatever appointment it might be. And if you take that approach, goes away, great. But you learn to manage it. You learn to manage your schedules, and you get a sense of what's going to go, what's not going to go. With more experience, you sort of know the likelihood of things happening.
Well, Roger, Courtney, it's not like y'all have a small task yourself. I mean, some of these returns and filings you deal with are stacked pretty high to the ceiling, right?
Yeah, we definitely have some thick returns. Joe's is one of them.
No comment.
There you go. Well, Joe, John, it's been fabulous to have you here. We're delighted to be able to celebrate the great work you're doing, and glad you're here in Atlanta, and that you're a resource that the business community and others can look to. So we appreciate you. Before we let you go, though, let's give everyone coordinates on how they can be in touch if they want to learn more about Wicker Smith.
Sure, absolutely, John. I appreciate it, and Roger and Courtney, thank you for having John and I. This was fun. We like everybody, we have a website, wickersmith.com. We also have a presence on LinkedIn. You can see some of our posts, our results, outcomes, those types of things. But if you go to that website, you can get all our information. Our contact information is there, our different offices, and happy to help anyone from the business side who wants to use us.
Terrific. Joe Menello and Jon Silverman from the law firm of Wicker Smith. Thanks again, Joe. John, we appreciate you. Hey, just a reminder, folks, that Frazier and Deeter is the sponsor of Frazier and Deeter's Business Beat, and is one of the largest and fastest growing accounting and advisory firms in the U.S. because they serve the emerging needs of their clients as they evolve. They serve clients from the global Fortune 1000 to growing private businesses by accounting for today while advising for the future. Frazier and Deeter invest in relationships to make a difference. For more information, go to FrazierDeeter.com. Roger, Courtney, this has been a good one.
Yeah, absolutely, Courtney. Thank you for joining us. John, Joe, thank you for joining us. And John, I guess the next time I see you, we will be past our 2022 filing deadline, so that'll be great for us.
You really will be smiling, right?
Hopefully.
Good deal. Well, for our guests, Joe Menello and Jon Silverman, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on Frazier and Deeter's Business Beat.